everybody. What's the topic, Sheila? I'd like to talk about.
It's Saka Dawa.
Oh, what am I supposed to do?
We have prayers.
Oh, we're here for puja. Oh. Oh, are we? Oh, not a teaching. I didn't know. I mean, I forgot. You're here for prayers. Oh, wow. Okay. What are we going to do?
Well, we have a set of prayers that Patty's our Zoom host, who's gonna put
What?
it on the screen.
Going to post them on the screen.
Yeah,
Do I need a book or something? I'm going to do them on the
it'll
screen.
be on the screen right in front of you.
I see. You came for prayers, did you? Is that what you came for? Prayers? You didn't. You came for prayers? Yes, you came for prayers. I don't feel like doing many prayers, I'm sorry. We'll do a research. We'll do a little thing here. Okay, take the prayers off. Take the prayers off.
You muted?
Take the prayers off. There you go. Okay, we're going to do a survey. We're going to do a survey. We should do a few little prayers to celebrate Saka Dawa and then have a teaching. Or do you want only prayers or do you want only teaching? Which one do you want? Okay, the first one, some prayers and a teaching. You want that? Some prayers and a teaching? You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree. Who wants only prayers? Put your hand up for only wants celebrating prayers, singing prayers. Who wants only prayers? Nobody. See, I know what people think. We're not prayer people. So we do a little few prayers to celebrate Saka Dawa, and maybe we do the Heart Sutra. How about that? Lord Buddha's Heart Sutra. We say the Heart Sutra, and then we'll talk about the meaning. How about that? Yes?
Yes.
Will that do? Okay. I just forgot. I forget. I'm old, Sheila. I forget.
I understand. I'm in the same boat.
You're in the same boat. You're old. You're old as well. Wow. Anybody else discovered old age? I know, it's true, isn't it? Okay, so if you want to follow on, or just listen, meditate. So we'll do the Heart Sutra. I'll read it. Okay, let's do the Heart Sutra. So let's just think. First, we just do our little refuge. We think we're sitting here today. There's said to be a holy day today, meaning like a very powerful configuration of the various, I suppose it's more astrologically speaking, isn't it? Certain energies have come together more powerful. And it's celebrating, it's the 15th day of the 4th Tibetan month. It's been building up, and it's the end already in India. Lamas obviously should go by the Indian time, but it's already over in India. But never mind, we're a bit behind in America. So it's the 15th day, and it's celebrating the enlightenment and the birth, etc., of the Buddha. And so, how marvelous! And so we think we're going to be sitting here doing this Heart Sutra, make a karmic connection, put an imprint in our mind about these words of the Buddha. So that we can develop our own amazing potential. So we can be a benefit to others. Thinking like that. Okay. So with that motivation in mind, we can think about, listen to and recite, or recite with me if you like, and think about it. Let's just the imprints of these words go in. So we imagine then the Buddha, there he was sitting there in meditation, actually. He was meditating on emptiness. And this is apparently the common way that the Buddha gave some of his teachings. He, I have a cushion, little skinny cushion, Sheila. There's a skinny cushion there for my back. Skinny one. Is there no skinny cushion? Yeah, that's it. That's good. That's lovely. Thank you, Dawn. Just pop it behind you. That's lovely. Perfect. Yes, that's lovely. So he commonly gave his teachings this way. Basically, huh?
I'm trying to get rid of
Okay,
the
yeah, I
box.
know. It doesn't go when there's people there. Well, we're going to do this way. We can, yeah, there we go. So he basically he will be sitting there in meditation, and then he's in this case channeling his thoughts into the minds of these two people, Shariputra, one of his main disciples, but also it says Avalokitesvara, but it's really as a 10th level bodhisattva in the human form, and they're having a conversation. And so basically Shariputra asks a question, and then the rest of it is Avalokitesvara giving the answer, but it seems it's Buddha's teaching. He's channeling these words into their minds. That's apparently what's happening. So it's actually Buddha's teaching, even though they are speaking the words, Because at the end, he comes out of his meditation and says, well said, well said. So how fascinating, isn't it? So he's sitting there in meditation on emptiness. All these words in this Heart Sutra are spoken from the perspective of a person in subtle meditation on emptiness, which means that they're in this subtle state of mind where there are no appearances of anything. So it's very simply within emptiness. It says that there is no this, no that, no this, no that. So we'll say the words and we'll talk about it a little bit so we can put it down to earth. Okay. So thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Mass of Vultures Mountain. Oh, by the way, I have to say something more here. This is wonderful. If you've been there, you know it's a tiny place up on the top of the hill. It's very beautiful. It's very silent. It's way up high and just bush all the way around, right up in the sky. You know, it's very small. That's why when I'd read the words, and there was a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. So I always wondered where they were all sitting. So I asked Geshe Dagpa in San Francisco one time, well, where are they all sitting? He said, oh, what do you think? In the sky. So we can visualize that we're sitting there in the sky, attending this event where the Buddha's in meditation and these two people having a conversation. We can visualize like that. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Mass of Vultures Mountain in Rajagriha together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokitesvara, and remember he's in a human form is 10th level Bodhisattva, so in a human form, looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. May I have the next page, please? May I have the next page?
I think you're sharing.
Or am I supposed to do it myself?
Is it my screen sharing?
Who's showing this? Who's showing the text?
Let me share. I'll share.
Huh? What happened?
I'm sharing this post. Sorry. Did you claim host? Host.
I'm happy to share if you'd like me to share if you're having problems.
Just let me see the text. Can I just have it? I'll do it myself, please.
Down.
Who put the prayer up? Who did it?
I did it initially, but I
Well, can't you go to the next page, you know? You can't.
this.
Yeah, I've done it. I'm doing it myself. I'm able to do it.
Yeah.
I can do it. I've just moved my finger. Or is it you moving your finger?
Yeah, she's doing it. Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing it. Go back. Now, next
Yeah.
one. Go.
Yeah.
Go. Second page, please.
Yeah.
What's happening? Go back, please. Okay. Then through the power of Buddha, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also, which means the 5 aggregates and everything else, which is about to be listed, as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. No visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata, Om Gate Gate, Para Gate, Para Samgate, Bodhi Svaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharabhatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised. That's spoken by the Bhagavan. Okay, so what's going on here? A little bit, just keep it simple. I don't know much, but I'll keep it simple. Basically, what that list there is all the categories of phenomena according to the Buddhist view of the universe, basically. This includes everything that exists. It's a way of presenting. So the first lot are these 5 aggregates, and that's, this sutra that Buddha taught, where he basically divided a person into 5 little components, Equally, you can also say the entire impermanent universe can be divided into those same 5 categories. So we're talking a person here. So the first of those is form, which refers to the physical, the body. The next 2, feeling and discrimination, are 2 of the really crucial states of mind that play a major role in our lives. That Buddha gave them special status by pointing them out there. The next one is called recognition, feeling, recognition, those 2. And then the next one is this kind of kind of grab bag left over of all the bits and pieces of impermanent things that make up a person. And the 5th one is called consciousness, which is kind of mind in general, the 5 components of a person. Then the next lot are these 3 lists of 6 things. They call the 6 senses. The 5 sensory consciousness, the 6 sense consciousnesses, the 5 sensory consciousnesses, eye, ear, nose, taste, tongue, and the 5th one, they call it mental consciousness. That's our thoughts and feelings, so the 6. Then the second lot are the objects of those. The way the mind functions is there's always a phenomenon that a mind cognizes. So eye consciousness cognizes sound, shape and color. Ear consciousness cognizes sound, etc. So the objects of this 5 sensory consciousness, and the 6th one it says phenomenon. It means everything in general, the object of mental consciousness. And the third lot of 6 things, which we don't talk about in our scientific world, are like this subtle physical energy they call the sense bases that play a role in our capacity for our mind to function, the sensory consciousnesses, 6 sense bases. Then he talks about the 12 links of dependent arising. I think that's next. It's kind of this series of steps in the way we construct our lives from life to death and then rebirth. And then there's the Four Noble Truths: suffering, causes of suffering, cessation, and the path. And then it talks about wisdom and attainment of wisdom and so on and so forth. But the general idea here is, you see, all the teachings in Buddhism come to this one. This is the culmination, really, from the wisdom. There's two paths. There's the wisdom wing, which is all the teachings we share with the Theravadan path, which is all this, exactly this. And then, which is the two analogy of a bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. Well, the wisdom wing is all the work of is the nuts and bolts of the teachings on karma and the mind, and how to learn to control and work with our own body, speech, and mind, to subdue our body and speech and mind, to lessen all the neuroses and the delusions that are the source of our suffering, and eventually to get to this point where we realize emptiness, where we cut the root of all the suffering, and then where there is no fear, as it says, and we'll talk about that. And then there's the compassion wing, which is the bodhisattva component. The path of where you now cultivate bodhicitta, and you combine the wisdom with the bodhicitta, and that's Buddhahood. So this is the expression of the wisdom wing, if you like, And so basically, this is the culmination of that. All the teachings about karma and the mind lead to this conclusion. So the key thing is the framework for this, to understand it, is understanding Buddha's view that every being, every person, every mind, every consciousness, every sentient being, every mind possessor just naturally possesses the potential to remove from their own mind all the neurotic states of mind. Using the Buddhist model of the mind, you've got positive, valid, useful, productive, virtuous, appropriate states of mind. And you have the negative, neurotic, I-based, ego-based, fear-based states of mind. And we give equal status to all of these in our world: love, compassion, kindness, intelligence, anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety. As far as we are concerned, in our models of the mind, it's true, isn't it? We give equal status to all of these and assume that a person, a reasonable person, a normal person, has a little bit of everything. And hopefully not more of the rubbish stuff. We don't want that. But there's no view. It's very clear, isn't it? There's no view in our modern psychology, or certainly in neuroscience, that suggests that you can rid your mind utterly of the neuroses. And that's precisely Buddha's point. Every piece of Buddha's teachings comes to this one. And so it's this realization of this emptiness, this absence of inherent existence, because everything in there it's said that they lack inherent existence. And this is what Buddha has found to be true: the removal of that root delusion that grasps at things as having this concrete, solid, inherent, real, pointable, findable nature. He has found that these neuroses, all the branch ones, anger, depression, jealousy, which are the branches of this new root one, this ego grasping that clings to the inherent me, Buddha has found from his own experience that they are adventitious. They don't belong in the mind. They're like additives. They're not at the core of our being. This is the most fundamental point in Buddhism, and all the teachings lead to this. Everything in Buddhism, if it's a technique, then it's got to be a technique that'll help you lessen your neuroses and indeed grow the virtues. That's the bottom line, And if it doesn't do that, it's a waste of time. So chuck it out. But everything leads, and this is the removal of all the neuroses, which culminates when we remove the root delusion and have recognized nakedly in the subtlety of our meditation that root delusion, that ego grasping, doesn't exist. The thing it clings to doesn't exist. The thing it clings to and believes in utterly doesn't exist. So you literally cognize the absence of that fantasy. That's what the word emptiness refers to. You recognize that that thing it clings to doesn't exist. You don't get rid of ego, you get rid of the belief in that fantasy ego. And that's when you've realized emptiness. So this is the culmination, where we discover that all the phenomena of the universe, the self and everything else, is all lack this concrete, solid, intrinsic character. That's what Buddha's basically saying, you know. So we have to realize that. And of course, we have to realize it at the subtlest level of our mind. We can't realize it through our eyes and our ears and our noses. And we can't even realize it through the grosser level of our conceptuality, which is the level we function at. And even in our modern psychology, we don't even posit a level of mind more subtle than that. And that's what's unique about the Buddha. And in fact, he didn't invent this. It came from these Hindus before him. They're the geniuses, as His Holiness says, who were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. These amazing, brilliant scholars and yogis, and Buddha came out of that tradition and then diverged in his own direction, specifically in relation to his own direct experiential findings about the nature of self. So it's quite radical, actually. But of course, we just think, oh, it sounds like religion, we stick it in the ridiculous basket, you know. No, it's this Buddhist psychology. It's incredible, highly sophisticated. Unbelievable. And we won't realize experientially this reality, which we need to in order to cut suffering, until we have accessed the subtler level of our mind through developing single-pointed concentration, samadhi, which these Indians discovered. It's just now we clever people in the modern world are beginning to even give credibility to. So what he's saying really is all these things he just mentioned, you know, these 18 they call the 18 constituents, 6 senses, the objects of the senses and the 6 sense bases, the 4 noble truths, the 12 links, the 5 aggregates, all these categories of phenomena. These are the terms used to refer to the things that exist, the conventional things we all know in the day-to-day world. This is Buddha's analysis, you know. Conventional things. We've got conventional reality, and then we have what they call ultimate or final reality. Finally, how things exist. Finally, how things exist. So one of the commonest mistakes, as we've talked, one of the commonest mistakes in the world, among the scholars and the great yogis and the scholars and so on, one of the commonest mistakes, and we can be forgiven for making it, is that when we hear there is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no taste, no this, no that, we think, oh, wow, there is no tongue, there is no ear, there is no eye, I might as well kill myself, you know. We can be forgiven for hearing that. This is why it's so complicated, it's so difficult to hear it properly. So really one simple way of putting it is what Buddha's saying is, things, you know, he's saying we misconceive things. We misconceive how things exist. So already what's implied in that statement, that there are indeed things that exist, but we misconceive them. So basically the things that exist, this is how they talk, the way they appear back to us, as Lama says, the way the world, things out there appear back to us is mistaken. It's like you got your crack spectacles on, and everything you see looks jagged and wrong. It's very obvious. A really good analogy, because one of the lovely ways they talk about the mind in Buddhism is that our mind is like a mirror. Our mind literally cognizes things as a mirror does. It reflects what exists, this is quite shocking, to think that the outside world is merely a reflection in a mirror, and our mind is the mirror. This is very shocking to hear. This is literally what they say, you know, literally what they say. So the trouble is, as Lama Yeshe says in Mahamudra, his book, right now our mirror is like dirty, polluted, dusty, with the delusions. So when there's attachment in the mind, when a mirror is distorted by attachment, when the mirror is distorted by arrogance, when the mirror is distorted by jealousy or whatever it is, or crucially, when the mirror is distorted by the root misconception, then things appear through their aspect. It appears through them. So and literally, but what really in a sense what Buddha's saying is we're not in touch with reality. So of course, reality is at various levels, you know. The very first teaching Lord Buddha gave was that everything is impermanent. This is a fairly evident thing. But he says one of the major mistakes we make, one of the deep misconceptions in our mind, is that we instinctively grasp and utterly believe that somehow things are set in stone. This we can see. And the mistake is primordial, and it causes major suffering. So this is the key point that Buddha's making. What he's saying is he's found a method to stop suffering. What Buddha's telling us is he's found a method to quit suffering. And he's found, so to do that, he's identified the causes of suffering. And he says the main cause of suffering, big shock to us, is the misconceptions in our mind. The emotional afflictions, which have this aspect of being delusional, of being misconceptions, these neuroses in our mind, which completely drive all of us to one degree or another, which we're utterly familiar with, and which we assume are normal parts of a normal person's mind. The Buddha has found that they are adventitious, and why, and that they are the cause of our suffering, because them being in the mind misrepresent the world back to us. So our being out of touch with reality, our being not in touch with reality, our living in with a mind that's believing in things that don't exist, this is why we suffer. This is a really fascinating view. This is not how we think in the world. It's mind-blowing, actually. And it's what Buddha's saying. So basically, the bottom line job is we have to identify those neuroses in the mind, remove them. It's a hard job because they're so primordial. And this one, most of all, this is the root one. This is the root misconception, the root lie, such that when it's uprooted, and that's perfected, that's what nirvana means, the cessation of suffering and its causes. So then, okay, so he's saying these 18 constituents and the 5 aggregates and the 4 this and the 9 that and the blah, they don't have an intrinsic nature. So the thing is already that statement is implying that there is a nose, an ear, and an eye. So this is where, if we can hear this, we can already hear that you won't make the mistake, as Tsongkhapa puts it, you know, falling into the abyss of the great mistake, nihilism. Oh, there's no I, you know. No, we just chuck the baby out with the bathwater. So this is why, to understand this emptiness, this absence of intrinsic nature, it's really marvelous to see it, to understand it in the framework of the 2 truths. Conventional and ultimate, right? So if it's true that, you know, that the things that exist appear in a mistaken way to us, we first have to establish what does exist, even conventionally. So we have to be clear in how you establish what does exist. And even if we got conventional reality correct, the world will be a blissful place, you know. So this is a really we've got to establish first what does exist, because he's saying that everything that does exist conventionally ultimately has no intrinsic nature. So you've got to first establish what it is you're talking about, and then you can investigate it to see how it actually does exist. So already this is telling us there's no reason to fall into the abyss of the great mistake. But our trouble is when we hear the two truths, we have at the moment the 2 wrong views. So as soon as we hear the ultimate truth, the word everything is empty of inherent existence, we like I said, throw the baby out with the bathwater. We go too far and become nihilistic. That's the wrong view. So we hear emptiness, we hear nothingness. Big mistake. And then as soon as we hear that there is a relative truth, there's a conventional truth, that there is something after all, oh, we go, oh, thank God. And then we grasp at it and we over-exaggerate its status. So here we exaggerate something's existence, here we annihilate it. So we go like drunken sailors between these two wrong views, you know, and see them as totally opposite. So let's talk about, you know, even just something simple like a cup. My thermos, I haven't got a thermos, I've got a mug there, my usual example of my mug. You drink my hot water in it first. Thank you so much. So let's think, what's this? You know, we have to establish something as existing. What's this, Mama? And she will say, that's a cup or something, right? She'll say it's a mug. And I'll go, what is it? There's a really major point. This is a huge point, actually, before we even begin to discuss emptiness. So she'll give me the definition, won't she? And you could argue that a definition, we've talked about this many times, a definition has two parts. The first part tells you its conventional characteristics. So what's that? Well, it says, she'll say, well, look at it, darling, it says flat-bottomed, clay thing, you know? And you'll see that. That's good, it's a good start. But she'll say, but mummy, what is it? And this is a major point. If you want to understand emptiness, you understand what is it? What is it? You actually, I'll say, what does it mean, mummy? I'll just say, what is it? Or I'll say, what does it do? Or I'll say, what's its function? That's what it means. Its function, it tells you its meaning. This is massive. She'll say, oh, sweetheart, it holds my tea. Well, don't just believe her. We'll believe anything anyone tells us. That's why we all live in conspiracy theories. We just read one word in one newspaper and one word on one thing on Instagram. We believe it. We're like idiots, you know. We run around like drunk idiot people, believing in anything we're told. The world lives in the maniac conspiracy theories. But she has to prove it. Don't just believe her. She's got to prove that it does that. This is how you establish what does exist, even conventionally. So she gets her tea and she pours, and we will both see that it fits the definition. It holds her tea. But still, you don't even believe it. You've got to check even more. She's got to improve even more things. She's got to make sure that in the world that we know, there's no alternative interpretation, alternative definition of this thing. And then we can shake hands and all agree that's a cup. And now we can begin to discuss how it doesn't exist. What is it about it that is mistaken? And this is the part that's hard. This is the part that's hard. Because what we don't see in our mind is that full of these delusions, full of these misconceptions, like you've got attachment in the mind. So the function of attachment is to over-exaggerate the deliciousness of something. You have aversion in the mind, and that's job is to over-exaggerate the ugliness of something. So right there, even there, right there, let's say, that's the cup of your ex-boyfriend. So it will appear very ugly to you because you're so mad at him. You won't even want to look at his boring old cup. So it'll appear to you through the lenses of your aversion, won't it? And it'll appear ugly. Don't touch it. You want to smash it, you know? So, and we sort of know we do that, but we don't notice. In other words, and then another person, his latest girlfriend, you know, his latest girlfriend will think it's the most divine cup she's ever seen. We understand this, but we don't join the dots. So one person is their view, their cognition of the cup, and we have established it is a cup. That's a valid name for this cup. It fits the definition. This is a valid cognition. But what we don't see is that the attachment in one person's mind paints a picture of delicious cup, and aversion in the other person's mind paints a picture of an ugly cup. We can't see that. And this is a gross example of the mistakes our mind makes. We know this is true, but we don't join the dots. That should be enough to get us to realize emptiness of the cup. And the Buddha is saying, all of us, to some degree or another, as long as we're regular sentient beings, have got these delusions in the mind, and they're playing this role all the time. But we don't see. As we'd say in our culture, we're projecting something onto the cup. We don't see that we're doing that. And the worst mistake is that we think the way that cup appears to us, in this case, these are simple examples, ugly or beautiful. We think the ugliness or the beauty are in the cup and having nothing to do with our mind. That's how we all experience the world. And that's really the fundamentalist aspect of these neuroses, especially the root delusion. And that's why we all fight and have arguments and go and kill each other and have wars and dramas. We're all driven, even if we've got virtues as well, but until we're highly realized, we're going to have these neuroses, and they're all painting a wrong picture of things that we can see. I mean, it's obvious. Something as simple as beauty and ugliness is fairly relative, and that's all Buddha's saying, you know. But we don't see that. And in fact, this is how we spend our lives. From the second we wake up in the morning until we go to sleep, what's happening? Well, our sensory consciousness is a very gross level, isn't it? Eye consciousness shapes, it can cognize only shape and color. It can't cognize pretty cup. That's the function of your mental consciousness, which the second your eyes go there, you access your mental consciousness, which is where the workshop is, which is where all the opinions and viewpoints and ideas are. And then up out of my mind will come what a pretty cup. And I cannot see that pretty cup is something I'm projecting onto that shape and color. We can't see that. We don't know we do that. And that's the big mistake. So the root delusion is even harder to see, but we can start with the branch ones. And already this is kind of very humbling. Then we can see that throughout the day, we are seeing cups that is valid. Okay, you make an extra trouble mistake if you think that's a knife. Then you're in trouble. But at least we're on track. Conventionally, we agree it's a cup. We agree there's a man. We agree there's Mr. Trump. We agree there's a computer. Relatively speaking, we've got those facts right. But we don't notice that those things are appearing back to us through the views in our mind. This is what Buddha's saying, and I think we can prove it to be true, you know. This is profound. So he's very simply saying, we're not in touch with how things exist. We're living out, we project our own fantasies onto things, and then we believe it's true. I mean, just talking recently to a friend of mine, you know, who's kind of got a lot of aversion in her mind to her partner, finding mistakes, you know, finding mistakes, seeing mistakes. So, of course, normally we think that those mistakes we're seeing are real. We think they are actually there. And they sometimes might be. But even then, we still exaggerate them as being worse than they really are. So we discussed it. And this person, we discussed, you know, well, how about coming up with how about painting a new picture of this person? Because what we don't realize, we see people through the lenses of our own stuff. And especially attachment. So when attachment is getting what it wants, attachment is emotional hunger in us, that if that partner is satisfying my attachment, they will appear divine to me. I just think they're the best thing, most gorgeous person in the world. But as soon as I perceive that they're not satisfying my attachment, I'm going to be angry. So then I paint this ugly picture of them. And we don't even notice half the time we're doing this, you know. So we discussed this. And we thought, what a good idea, just paint a new picture of the person. Just decide in your mind to paint a new picture of this person whom you're mainly seeing now through the lenses of aversion. So how about, and there's nothing complicated, how about pointing out some of their good qualities? That's it. You know, within a week, you'll see a different person if you really sincerely did that. But you have to want to. We mostly don't want to. We'd prefer to believe in the ugliness, you know. We know this is true. We just don't want to think it, that's all. He is ugly. He is bad. I am right. That fundamentalism is the main problem with all the delusions. Our minds are set in stone, you know. So this root delusion, which is so way more subtle than this attachment and aversion I just described, which are the branch delusions of the root one, the main branch delusions. That's the hardest one to see. Because even to hear the words. So if attachment exaggerates the deliciousness of the person because they're satisfying your needs, and if aversion exaggerates their ugly qualities because they're not satisfying your needs, and that's why those two arise, then what is the root delusion? So each exaggerates. So what is the root delusion exaggerating? This is why it's harder, because that's underpinning both the attachment and the aversion. So, you know, if you read any Buddhist books, you're going to read about the 3 poisons, one of Buddha's favorite phrases. All these hundreds of different negative states of mind, and they all subsume to these three. And the root one is called simply ignorance, in Tibetan Maripa. And there's different levels of ignorance, but the root one we're discussing here, is colloquially so that root delusion, its main voice is the attachment, and then when attachment is thwarted, aversion arises. So these 3 have a very intimate hierarchical relationship, you know. Aversion and attachment we can start to really see. That's in when we begin to really look into our minds, we learn to see these two, because we go between these two 1,000 times a day. They're intimately connected. But to see the root one underneath, one that informs both of them, that's really hard. So attachment exaggerates delicious cup, and aversion exaggerates ugly cup. But ignorance, right there inside them, exaggerates the very ontological status itself of delicious cup or ugly cup, and that's in the cup itself, coming from the cup, having zero to do with my mind. I'm just this innocent bystander, seeing an inherently ugly cup, an inherently delicious cup, an inherently nice person, an inherently beautiful computer. That word inherent, that it inheres in the thing. It's really hard to see this, even to hear it intellectually. But this is there utterly, pervasively, and totally all the time. And it's this work in the subtle level of our mind in meditation that they're describing in the Heart Sutra. That's when we can cut it. And then the mind now has gone beyond fear. So, of course, the phenomenon we cling to most is called I. I is the central player in our head. Everything is seen through the lenses of I. Through disattachment and aversion, they're expressions of the inherent I. Attachment is this emotional hunger, neediness, a sense of lacking, a sense of dissatisfaction that gives rise to this emotional hunger to only get everything nice, to get what I want. I mean, it's purely self-centered. It's embarrassing to hear it. It makes us feel unhappy to even hear it. But it's finally an utterly necessarily self-centered state of mind. It's the main voice of this ego, of this ignorance. And when this ignorance is referring to the I, we can refer to it as ego grasping, self-grasping, ego grasping. And it's sort of utter. It's beneath everything else. And even you could argue in our modern psychological views of the world and of people and things, this I is what is posited as existing with certainty. We take it as a given. So what Buddha's saying is, conventionally, there is a cup that holds tea, but we totally exaggerate the status of the cup. That's the best way to put it. And then ultimately, from the side of the cup, you will not find one atom of pretty cup or ugly cup. Not one atom of anything there is what is what makes it that. So as soon as we hear that, we fall into the abyss of the great mistake. And as soon as we hear that there is a cup, we over-exaggerate and grasp and go, oh, thank God there is something after all. And we go between these two extremes. So all we have to do is learn to hear the two truths and to see that they're not contradictory. In fact, they imply the other. So as Lama Zopa says, when we've realized that from the side of the cup, there is not an atom of cupness there, when we realize the emptiness of the inherent cup, it's as if there's no cup. But there is a cup conventionally. But what does exist is so subtle, it's as if it doesn't exist. That's a really delicious way to put it, you know, from the experience of the yogi. Because finally, these two come together. The final middle way is when these two truths are cognized simultaneously. Even the greatest yogis, in their meditation, they are cognizing emptiness. When they come out of their meditation, the cup appears to them, although they don't believe in it. But for the Buddha, finally, when your mind is enlightened, that's when these two are cognized simultaneously. So the two truths actually infer the other. They refer to the other. They imply the other. They point to the other. They're not opposite. And we can even get that conceptually, we're on the right track, you know. Then you will never fall into the abyss of the great mistake. Any questions? Anybody? Questions? Anybody? Yes, go.
So could you just go like, sorry. Please go back to emptiness and.
Start again.
Could you please go back to emptiness?
Okay, go.
and where we can start?
Go.
Are you saying that emptiness is like not having any emotional projection on an objective reality?
I wouldn't even put the word emotional. Not even need for emotional. Don't worry about that. It means if you realized emptiness, you would completely enjoy the cup. And you would have very delicious tree, very delicious tea, and the cup would be very delicious, and you'd thoroughly enjoy it. It's because it's a cup, but you're not gonna. There's no neurotic. It's not sort of polluted by attachment or aversion or ego grasping or all the other neuroses that are there all the time that we just can't see. Best I can say is like that. There is a cup, but it's sort of like you're seeing the cup as it really is, which really just means you'll see the cup. I mean, it sounds dumb, but there's no, what we've got to realize is that what Buddha's saying is that these neuroses are all of us, in our minds, all the time, to one degree or another. And they pollute all of our goodness and all of our virtue and limit us. These neurotic states of mind.
So the emptiness is the lack of neuroses.
Yeah, no, emptiness is just a word that refers to absent, not there. So what is not there is what you thought. When you realize what's not there, quote unquote emptiness, when you realize what's not there, it's what you thought was there all your life. In other words, you're convinced that a $50 note is 500. And one day you fix your glasses and you get the shock of your life and you see the truth for the first time. So what you just realized then is the absence of 500. Can you hear my point? It's like that. I got to start again. Pretend that you've got funny glasses that cause a $50 note to have 2 zeros. You with me?
Yeah.
It's a simple mistake, right? So one day we fix your glasses up. We fix your glasses, right? And suddenly you see the truth. You get a shock, won't you? Oh my God, it's only $50. You'll see the truth, right? You agree with me? So what you're really seeing first, you get the shock because you just realize, oh my God, it's not 500. You with me? You'll realize it's not 500, won't you? Do you accept that?
Yes.
So that seeing it's not 500 is spelling out seeing the absence of 500, seeing the emptiness of 500. Emptiness just means not there. Can you hear those words?
But you haven't defined it,
Haven't defined what?
emptiness.
Yeah, emptiness is, first of all, let's get the head around the word emptiness, okay? Okay. I'm about to drink my tea. I go, oh, my cup's empty, I'll say. Would I say that, wouldn't I? And we mean empty of tea, don't we? That's a simple example of emptiness. So make that a noun. What my cup just cognized is the absence of tea. It sounds kind of cute, but it's true. Would you agree with me there? I just cognized the emptiness of tea in my cup. Well, that's the word emptiness. Emptiness meaning is the lack of something. So here it's emptiness of inherent I. Spell it out. When you realize the emptiness of inherent you, that's the realization of emptiness. Finally, you've cut the root. So emptiness refers to absence of something. So it can be absence of tea, absence of 2 zeros. I mean, whatever it might be, there's ordinary examples. Can you hear the simple way I'm talking? First, can you hear these first? So what the Buddha's talking about is not the absence of bloody tea or the absence of 2 zeros. He's talking about the absence of a concrete I in here that we have been believing in since beginningless time. Can you hear those words?
The emptiness is internal, it's not related to the cup. Sorry.
No, you're making it too complicated.
Okay.
It's okay, don't worry. Please forgive me. Don't worry about it. It is complicated, but it's okay. So why don't you give me a sentence in which you have the word emptiness so then we can describe it. We can look at your sentence. Use it the way you want to use it. What do you think was being said here?
What I'm hearing, what you said, sorry, is that what?
What are we discussing? You're asking about the word emptiness. So use it in a sentence so I can hear how you're using it, so I can then just discuss it with you.
What I thought I heard was, it was the lack of our projection of the perception of the cup as opposed to the reality.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. So the projection is $500. You agree? You see 50, but you believe it's 500. You're projecting 500. That's a mistake. You agree it's a mistake. So you're not in touch with reality. You agree with me? So when you get your glasses fixed, which means your mind, and you look at that thing again, you'll go, oh my God. You'll say, oh my God, it's not 500. Would you say that? You would say that, wouldn't you? So that, oh my God, it's not 500 is another way of saying you have just cognized the absence of $500 on that $50 note. It's sort of like an abstract way of saying it. Can you hear that? There you go. Now you got the point. You have. So you have, no, listen, the projection is attachment in your mind. Attachment is pretentious attachment, wanting it to be 500. That's why you project something onto the $50 note that doesn't exist. So attachment projects onto the cup beauty that doesn't exist there. You project ugliness onto your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, which isn't there. That's all. So something in your mind projects more onto the $50 note than there really is. Something in your mind called attachment projects more onto the person than there really is. Aversion projects ugliness onto something. So this root delusion projects even thingness onto things. That's all. So you observe, you notice the mistake your attachment made. So the word emptiness refers to the absence of the delicious cup, the absence of the $500 note. Your mind cognizes that absence, that emptiness, there. Slowly, okay? These words seem abstract, so strange, but once you get our head around the use of them, it's kind of helpful language. I mean, we use it every day. If you like boyfriends or girlfriends, I've got no idea what you like. We're very flexible these days. Just pretend you like girlfriends and your girlfriend's left you. I guarantee you're seeing all day in that house the absence of your girlfriend, aren't you? You're feeling the loss. We live in absences. Never feeling you got enough money. All you're seeing, observing is absence of money. You're seeing absence of tea, absence of, that's all we're all about ourselves. We're miserable. Totally, they're miserable absences, This absence is a delicious one. Anyway, slowly. Any other questions? Yes, go.
Yeah.
Give me the microphone, please. Yes.
I wanted to understand how does the ultimate truth imply the conventional?
Say it again, darling.
I wanted to understand how knowing that, maybe right now it's just intellectual, but I intellectually know that, there is a lack of cupness in that cup that I'm seeing. How does that imply that there is definitely a cup conventional?
Okay, how would you even identify the absence of cupness if you didn't have a cup in the first place? There it is, right there.
Yeah.
And that's in the Heart Sutra. Buddha says form is empty. And then he says emptiness is form, meaning whatever you want to call it, form or cup. So he's telling us first you have to establish the existence of a conventional cup, and then you discover the absence on that cup of the exaggerated nature. So you have to have a cup in the first place. So it can never be nihilism. Can you hear? Good. Thank you. And once you understand that, and you're grounded, that's why the two truths together is so important way to do it. Otherwise, you fly off to the la la land, oh, no, this, no, that, everything's empty. Well, you might as well kill yourself, Do you understand? Emptiness, the absence of something, is abstract, but it is a very vivid thing. The absence of something has to exist somewhere. In fact, the way Buddha talks in general, he talks about how things exist. And one of the first things when you study the first text you study about what exists, there's sort of a map of the world. There's 18 this and 6 and this and 4 of that and something else. The very first level of category is that which exists. And the definition of that which exists is that which can be cognized by your mind. So everything that the mind can cognize, if it's a valid cognition, is that which exists. So then everything that exists is something that can be cognized by the mind. So if you can cognize the absence of tea in this cup, you can, can't you? Then you would say that's a phenomenon. That's a thing that exists. The absence of tea exists. The absence of, of 2 zeros on a 50 exists. It sounds quaint, but it's a very powerful way to say it, because then I think the mind cognizes things as like nouns. The mind cognizes events, things, so absence of something is a very vivid thing that exists. Do you see what I'm saying? That's how you say it. It's a very helpful way to put it. What else, people? Something else?
Venerable Robina, I think Eileen online has a question.
Hello,
And
darling.
Adriana.
Oh, thank you, Ruben. If I were to experience other people through the lens of emptiness, I would not have an attachment or an aversion. So what would I experience? Just love or
love and compassion and kindness and empathy and wisdom, and you'd be blissed out all the time.
right.
You wouldn't see them through the lenses of your own needs, Eileen.
Yes.
Now, it sounds embarrassing to us, but we can't help. Everybody in the universe sees everything and everybody else through the lenses of our own needs. We should be embarrassed to hear it, but that's how it is.
Yes.
When
Absolutely.
you quit that, you see everything as they are, every person as they are, and if you've got compassion as well, wow, amazing. Completely different way of seeing the world.
Mm.
Do you understand?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
What else?
Adriana, go ahead.
Go, darling, go. Charlotte, yeah. Sweet, go.
How does karma relate to
Hang on a second, Adriana. Let's have Charlotte say first. Go.
how does karma relate to the way that we see cup, not cup, or good person?
No, I understand. It's a good one. I think when we talk about the I as the phenomenon, then it's really practical. But in general, when we know with emptiness or dependent arising, which is the term, the shorthand, as we know, the shorthand for how things exist conventionally. Well, as we know, Lord Buddha teaches 3 levels of dependent arising, each of them, roughly speaking, isn't it, an argument with prevailing views at the time. And those 3 levels of dependent arising, each, the second more subtle than the first, and the third the most subtle. The first one is cause and effect. Cause and effect, that everything, certainly impermanent phenomena, every impermanent thing that exists first exists in dependence upon causes. So that's the broader logic of cause and effect in general. So now when it comes to person, cause and effect means karma. So karma is a brilliant example of dependent arising. And if we can really begin to abide by the laws of karma, that I am the product of causes. So I feels like an innocent victim who didn't ask to get born. We know there are causes, but it's called mummy and daddy, everybody else, and not poor me. But when you have a view of karma, it completely changes. You take responsibility. You know you are the fruit of your past actions. And so it already loosens the grip of ego grasping tremendously. So it's the first level of dependent arising, cause and effect. The second level, of course, is parts. I exist in dependence upon parts, cups as well. And the third one, of course, is I exist merely labeled. The three levels of dependent arising. And the first one is causes. Do you understand? That's the answer, I think. And so when it comes to people, it's karma. Makes sense? That's your question, right? Yeah. It's an example. It's the first reason to prove the first dependent arising to prove emptiness. That's the one, you know. It's a brilliant example, actually. And already we can see it loosens the grip of ego grasping and we start to apply it. Because the view of innocent victim is I'm set in stone, someone else made me, nothing to do with me, poor me, didn't ask to get born, it's not my fault. That's the pain of ego. So as soon as we apply cause and effect of karma, it loosens that completely. It's profound. It's amazing. I love that as an example. What else, people? Yes, go, Adriana, sweetheart, talk to me.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you. When the body is dying,
When who?
when the body is dying,
Okay.
does it have emptiness? And when the body is dying, how can we perceive this emptiness? Please, Venerable, and can you give an example, please?
I think I need you to ask the question in a different way. I don't really understand the way you ask the question. Ask in another way. Do you mean as you're dying, do you grasp at something? Is that what you're asking? No.
No, is for example, the body is when the body is when example, if I am dying, okay,
Sure.
now,
Yep.
and if my body is dying, how can I perceive this emptiness when the body is dying?
Which emptiness do you want to be perceiving at the time of death? Explain what you mean. Can I perceive emptiness? Can you explain a bit more what you mean by that, darling?
Okay, and the solutions. So when the
The dissolution is good. Now I'm
yes.
beginning to understand you. So
Yes.
so you're saying as I go through the death process, is it possible for me to realize emptiness? Is that your question? Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Point, darling, it's all taught. The 8 stages of death. When we look at the when we look at the 8 stages of death, that is all the key way to practice meditating on those 8 stages in daily life in preparation for death is as you go through each of those 8 stages, you are trying to meditate on the emptiness of it at each stage. That's the way you should familiarize your mind. So if you are very familiar with that, as you go through the 8 stages of the dissolution and your mind gets more subtle and more subtle and more subtle, then you are able to see emptiness at the more subtle level. That's the goal, darling. Because that's what the yogis have spent their life trying to do in their sadhanas with single-pointed concentration, going through those 8 stages, preparing for death. So when they get to the death process, they are ready. So their mind gets more subtle, more subtle, more subtle, and their meditation on emptiness gets stronger and stronger. That's the job to be done.
Okay. Please, Venerable, can you give us an example? For example, when
Example of what?
When the earth is
Each of the stages you're having each of the stages we know from the meditation there is they talk about a vision. So the first one is of a mirage, the second one is the smoky, the third one is the sparks. Each of those visions you have to meditate on those and imagine them, and you would then think, and it is empty of existing from its own side. You practice seeing that as empty. That's how Lama Zopa says.
okay.
You need to get Lama Zopa's book, How to Face Death Without Fear. It's only available as digital at the moment, but it explains that very clearly in there, the meditation on how to do it. It's a very good book. It's available from.
Okay. Yes, I have the book.
Good. Okay. Then it's in there. The
So
meditation is.
I read it and read it and read it and
Think about it and think about it, and then slowly it starts to make sense.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. What else, people? 8:30. Time to go home soon. Maybe that's enough then. I don't know. So we just I mean, this is the thing, is it's half the battle. It's sort of like if you're an IT guy and you start talking in your language, I'll just go, huh? So it's a question of getting our heads intellectually around the concepts first. Do you understand? Getting used to the language. Then we can communicate, then we can start to think it through properly. That's part of the battle, I think. Do you understand? So once we can do that, because we're clever people, we can do that. Then we can start having conversation about it and start using the words in the right way. So keep going, babe. Okay. So the thing I just want to finish with, I think this is very surprising to us. We always hear it, don't we? And it says it in the Heart Sutra, and there is no fear. When you realize emptiness, you've cut fear. That sounds so weird to us to think, what do you mean fear? But what we don't see, and this is the Buddha's view, is especially the root delusion, ego grasping, which is like a sleeping lion most of the time. It's the one that underpins the other delusions. But when that is awakened is when you're threatened, when you nearly get knocked over by a car, when something terrible happens and your heart beats, that's when that one rises, the sleeping lion wakes up, and we know it is just fear personified. But somehow that fear is also there right when you have attachment. It's right there when you have aversion. It's right there when you're jealous. Look at the intensity of the emotion. That's called, they're all rooted in fear. We don't think of it that way, but look at it. And look at how we all have anxiety the whole time, except a polite word for fear. So then you ask, well, what are we afraid of? Because we're believing, this sounds hilarious, we have fear because we have believed since beginningless time in an I that doesn't exist. Sorry, yeah. It sounds hilarious, it sounds ridiculous. But it makes sense. If for so long, that $50 note, okay, it's such an example, you believed it's 500. So you get all overexcited, you build up your anticipation, you go to get $500 worth, you go to spend it, and then what is the result? Bitter disappointment. So that we've been doing this 1 billion lifetimes, Buddha says. So of course fear comes, because we're grasping and trying to hold on to things that have no actual basis in reality. So no wonder we're scared to death. So when you've realized, like Lama Zopa, that story, I always think about Lama Zopa as a little boy up in the Sherpa land, and he saw these white people with yellow eyes, or yellow eyes and white hair. I can't remember how they call about white people, the Sherpas. And he wanted to meet these two. He was 8 years old, up in the mountains. He'd been recognized as a reincarnation of a previous yogi, right? So the implication is he's realized emptiness. He's chosen his new rebirth, and you might know the words, but you can't lose that. So there he is. He sees these two foreigners, white people, on the other side of the river, and he wants to visit them. So he walks on this kind of like a big tree trunk as a bridge with his boiled potatoes as a gift, and he falls into the water. Well, he's drowning, isn't he? And this is how he told the story. He said, the head, first of all, this one, the head, he said, came to the surface for air. And he remembers he sees his uncle having a panic attack running along the riverbank, He said the head. So this is really telling us about the training. We say, I came up for air. No, the head did. They talk like that. The head, the nose, anger. There is jealousy. They're very objective. The head, he said. And then he said, and he kept going down into the water because they would teach them swimming up there. And he said, he told the story, and he said, oh, the thought occurred to me. The person known as the Laudo Lama, who has been recognized formally as a reincarnation's previous yogi, the person known as the Laudo Lama, not I, but the person known as the Laudo Lama, is about to die. And then he told the story and said, I didn't know anything about emptiness, meaning in that life he hadn't heard the words. but there was no fear. So I think in our world, and I would say it's Mr. Darwin, I think it was Mr. Darwin who came up with this observation when he observed animals and people. And indeed, when we're under threat, we panic. So we all assume this panic, this instinct for survival, is a necessity. We actually see it as a necessity. And we even think that if you didn't have that, you just, Lama Zopa, if he didn't have instinct for survival, which means fear, he would just sink to the bottom of the river and go, oh, well, I'm drowning, it doesn't matter. No, that'd be ridiculous. You need intelligence, not fear, to know you're bloody drowning. But this is the part that's shocking to us psychologically. There was no fear, meaning because he had realized the absence of the fantasy I, not to mention the absence of all the other fantasies in past life, and you can't lose that. Once you get that, you can't lose that. You've cut the root of existence, you know. He said, once you've realized that, you know perfectly well you're drowning and you come to the surface for air, but your mind isn't driven by panic and fear and attachment because there's no fear and attachment. We can't conceive of this, but this is really important to think about. This is the Buddha's view. It's quite a unique view. It doesn't fit with our view at all. There was no fear. So if he had fallen to the bottom of the river and drowned, he would not have had fear. That's inconceivable for us. That's why we have to understand the Buddha's view of the mind, how these neuroses are not at the core of our being and can be removed. That's the entire Four Noble Truths. It's Buddha's in fundamental finding. We've got to hear it in very blunt terms, otherwise we just romanticize it, you know. It's kind of shocking to hear this. This is the Buddha's view. I think it's very exciting. I can't wait to have this understanding. No fear, can you imagine? But only clarity. This is Eileen's question. Only clarity, only joy. That's the other thing that's amazing what Buddha has found, that the degree to which we are neurotic and miserable is the degree of the presence of neuroses in our mind. And when you've rid the mind of those, what else can you have but joy? What else can you have but virtue and love and compassion and wisdom? Wow. It's exactly what Buddha is saying is possible, you know. So it's pretty marvelous. So we finish on that note with optimism, okay? On this special day, sorry to deprive you of all the prayers. We realize these Buddha's amazing, these amazing experiences of the Buddha. He's given us all his methods right there. He's realized these things and he says, here's my methodology, over to you, you know. So maybe do exactly that. And just like Buddha, realize our own marvelous nature and add compassion to it so we can be a benefit to others because we're all in the same boat, okay? Chang Chup Sem Chog Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyuchig Ke Panyam Pa Me Pa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Pel Ba Sho Ge Wa Di Nyuru Dag Lama Sangi Drugyo Ne Drowa Chikyang Manupa Dei Sala Ge Pa Shok. And many lamas have come back very quickly. They've already, I discovered a boy in Nepal, but we don't know more yet. So as Dalai Lama's prayer says, may his smile beam upon us. Lucky disciples, okay, very soon. Okay, people, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, thank you. Keep going, keep looking, keep reading, keep praying.